채널 젊은 달.
Good evening. I'm sorry not to be able to be with you tonight to receive this great honor of the D.W. Griffith Award. But I'm in London making Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And just about this time, I'm probably in the car on the way to the studio, which, as it happens, reminds me of a conversation I had with Steven Spielberg about what was the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film. And I believe Steven summed it up about as profoundly as you can. He thought the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film was getting out of the car. I'm sure you all know the feeling.
My old friend, old priest, told me, he said, you pay a price, and you pay a price. Just quite honestly, a personal life, really, and relationships go by the board. I mean, it was as if the Frank Capra quote, it's like a drug or something that you have to continue. And now, as I say, some people call that drive, some call it obsession, some call it just being selfish and being not a very nice person. But the reality is that I just had to continue that process. And there always seemed to be, I was lucky after doing Last Temptation in 87 and 88 with Goodfellas, I always felt there was always a subject matter around that I felt that I could have the passion to go through this pretty, I must say, exhausting process, and also sometimes, difficult, combative process by the time the film is finished with studios and other things. And so you can't complain about it because that's what I do.
もう早く映画終わらせなきゃいけないの。飛行機の設計家とか機械を設計した人たちっていうのはこうどんなその時が善であると思ってやってもやっぱり時代の風化の中で機械文明そのもののこう手先になるから無傷じゃないんですよ。呪われた夢なんです。アニメーションもそうです。
呪われた夢。
呪われてる。今の人類の夢っていうのはみんな呪われてますよ、どっかで。美しく呪われた夢ってことが多いんですよ。金を稼ぎたいとかそういうのは全部論外。有名になりたいっても論外。そんなのクソくらいで。そういうことじゃない。映画が素晴らしい。映画が本当に素晴らしいのかどうかわからないじゃない。ね、本当にきちんと考えたら映画が好きだったのはただのそういう趣味でしょっていう。かつてそういう映画が作られたことがあったかもしれないけど、今も映画の価値があるわけではない。多くはくだらないんですよ、僕らのこの世界は。難しいんだ。
I remember when I saw the first critics coming out of Venice Film Festival, and then the reaction in Toronto. I look at my partner and I said to her, "All right, they will allow me to make other movies." It's just at the end of the day, it's just that you put so much work and passion into a movie, and it's just. It's a huge privilege, and I don't take things for granted. So I'm always saying thank you to the gods of cinema every time it's going well. It's like Arrival could have been a total disaster. We were flirting with disaster a lot doing that movie, so I was very afraid as we were doing it that it could have go wrong. It's a movie that was fragile until the end.
I don't think you ever know things are going to work out in any endeavor in life, but certainly not in a movie. And you can make a movie exactly the way you imagined it without compromise and have it go out and fail in the marketplace because of some fundamental disconnect between you as an artist and the audience out there. And of course, that's what we all ultimately fear as filmmakers. We don't fear the fact that it's going to rain and ruin a day's shooting. We fear the fact that our kind of filter for what works for us emotionally in terms of what excites us on the screen is different than the audience at large. large.
There's nothing easy about filmmaking. It's hard to make a terrible film. So, but when you're surrounded by people in front of the camera and everybody's united and simpatico and concert what you're trying to do, that's where the fun, comes from.
I love Alien. So yeah, I signed up naive and went off to Pinewood to be sodomized ritualistically for 2 years.
I remember going to see it and thinking, rather enjoying it, but equally...
Whatever.
No, no. What was the problem?
There's no one problem with a, $65 million fucked up first-time filmmaker. I made a crucial error. I listened to the people who were paying for the movie, and they said the way to go about this is not to work with your friend. Work with people who've done this time and time and time again. And basically that translates into meet a lot of people who are going to resent you and your age and are not going to want to take instruction from you, and allow them to tell you what you can't do. A lot of people who are just like, what the fuck? Who is this twerp? So I kind of retreated back to doing television commercials and had no expectation that I would ever be employable again. And I got sent a script, and it was 7.
I think that your ambition should always be more than your budget. It doesn't matter what your budget is. I remember talking to Alfonso Cuarón while he was prepping Harry Potter, and he was saying we're trying to contain it on, and he said, gave me the number, whatever, 120 or 200, and I went, what? And it's true, you're trying to contain. In a movie like that, you're still trying to contain. The myth of people that see a big movie and say, oh, if they give me the money, I could do that, it's a myth. It's entirely a myth, and it comes with some absolute lack of knowledge of how these things operate, because it's a military operation. And the larger it becomes, still, the budget is a monster and a wall, and you're running a train against it, and you need to know where to stop.
I mean, this had 7 set pieces, and that was the one thing we were determined to hang on to. Even though, as the numbers kind of shrank to the 10 and then the $1 million bond and finance fee, we still, we were determined to hang on to those 7 set pieces. Not just because Hurt Locker was made for a modest sum, but I do think the more contained the budget is, the more creative control you have. And I mean, there are exceptions, of course, right. But I think that kind of, I think, creative control, especially on a piece that's personal and it's a labor of love, is critical. Mm-hmm. Those pieces can't afford to be made by consensus. Mm-hmm. They really do need, kind of singular approach and a fairly passionate trajectory to make it through the system and remain intact.
When you're starting out particularly, you have to play to your strengths. You have to do something that really excites you, and whatever's different about that. And in the case of following, the non-linear structure was a somewhat unusual choice. But it's those things that are the strength of the project. It's the things that you can bring to what you're doing or bring to the filmmaking craft that maybe not everybody else is doing, maybe not everybody else can do or has thought to do. That's what's going to distinguish the thing. So it might seem in some ways more difficult, or seem like something that would make the project more difficult to sell when it's finished, what have you. But for me, I think the answer was definitely to try to play to my strengths and the things that I personally was passionate about.
I'm not really aware or thinking about themes as I'm writing. Afterward I can talk about it if pressed, but I'm not thinking that this is all some kind of continual conversation that I'm having. I'm just trying to make the next movie. Sometimes I'll see a great movie and I'll think like, God, they were able to do something, tell a kind of really human story, but in a genre form, and I'm thinking like, why do you keep trying to tell a human story in a just straightforwardly semi-realistic way? It seems so much easier to make everything a metaphor. I'm not doing it because I don't want to do the other. It's really because it's the way I feel like it's how I see things. It comes out this way, and if I could somehow translate it to space or, you know, Gotham City or something, I would love to do that. I really would. I would love to try to do that. But up until now, I haven't sort of, you know, found a way that you know feels, I guess, authentic, or that I feel like I could communicate effectively, and that other people can do those kind of movies better than I can.
この作品までは多分主人公結構いい年食ってますけど、多分息子目線で家族ってものを捉えてるんですね、きっとね。それはノーバディノーズもそうでしたし、スティルウォーキングも多分そうだと思うんですけど、この後に自分に子供ができて、I wish と Like Father Like Son で映るんですけど、その2本は父親目線なんですよね。だからそれは自然と何か意識して変えたわけではなくて、自分が子供を持って自然とこう物語を書く視点が父に移っているっていうのが、自分でこう映画を撮り終わった時に発見があって、面白いなと思って、こうやって家族の中での自分の役割が変化していく時に自分の作る映画が変わっていくというのはとても面白い体験だなと思って、これは多分僕があと10年20年映画を撮り続ければまた違う家族の物語が違う語り口で作れるんじゃないかなというふうに考え方が変わりました。なんか家族の作家だっていうふうに言われるのが実はそんなに好きではなくて、家族から離れよう、もうファミリードラマはしばらく撮りませんって言ってサードマーダーっていうのを撮ったんですけど、その後ショップリフターズでまた家族の話に戻っちゃったんで、もう宣言するのやめようと思って、あんまりこう自分が次に何を撮るかとかどういう方向へ進むかって決めてできることじゃないので、今もう本当に自然体で、自分の中で浮かんだものを次に撮ろうというふうにしか考えないようにしてます。
I think that's me responding to somebody criticizing me for making the same movie over and over again, probably, which I get. And I think it's, it's because I deal with the similar themes, but I don't usually think about themes when I'm writing. And there are probably connections among the kinds of characters. I use a lot of the same actors over and over again. And I guess there's visual stuff that you can link from one movie to another. A lot of things that I do the same way every time. But it's just the way I like it, and I feel like it's a mistake for me not to do it, not to do that. If I feel like I have an idea what the best thing is for the story, I would just want to follow that. Even if it does mean that people can tell it's me. Like, people always refer to my movies as quirky, and they think the characters are weird. And for me, I can understand that point of view about them, but almost every character in any movie I've ever made is based on somebody in real life, or based on a combination of real people. So even if I take it to a slightly odd place, to me, those are all real people, and they're characters that mean something to me beyond. I'm not interested in the quirks. I'm interested in the whole sum of the character.
Desire. To me, writing is about having desires for ideas. Therefore, it is always about trying to build an architecture of multiple desires. The word desire is traditionally linked to cinema, that has long been called the industry of desire. This idea is polemical on a lot of levels in 2019, if you want my opinion, but it is our culture, the one we grew up in, at least. Yet desire isn't a word we associate with screenwriters or words. It is associated with the idea of images and making images. As a writer, you are only asked about desire as an initial spark that puts you at work, the desire to write that story, or in a more introspective, psychoanalytic question, the desire under the story, your secret desire. It is pretty rare that you get to refer to your present desire, or a desire building up. Also, because the process of writing is so long, it's like it doesn't have a present, because it is constituted of layers and layers, and it's all about rewriting. But to me, that's actually the point. The fact that screenwriting is the opportunity to work on your desires rather than acting immediately on them. Here I must say that putting desire at the center isn't about making it organic or personal. That would be feminine and despised. It is to make it sharp and uncompromising. It is about the construction and being radical with yourself, not self-indulgent at all. It's about resisting easy pleasures and resisting the temptation of belonging. At that point, I'm sure this feels quite abstract, mostly because desire doesn't feel reliable as a method. Desire doesn't even have the reputation to be accurate. Can we trust our own desires? It seems like a very vast and mysterious feeling or sensation. But make no mistake, it's not because it's wide. It's because it is hitting hard somewhere and having a strong echo. Like a rising tide, I might say, and that leaves a chance to that title. I think desire is super accurate, but you have to locate it. My job as a screenwriter is to work on locating that place where desire is precisely hitting.
So we saw that you are writing during the shooting, and you are also editing during the shooting. You don't divide the work by step.
Because I don't have patience, so I want everything to be done at the same time. But somehow it also creates something that you can understand directly that, okay, this is the right rhythm or not. So whenever we find the rhythm, and then we will just shooting and wait until the end of the productions, then we start editing.
And eventually you also start another film.
Of course. Actually, I always think to make films, sometimes it would be good like a road movie or like a circus in the old times. So we work together with a team, and then we can keep shooting. And I always have a dream to make 10 films in 18 months, traveling along. Because to me, I think people ask, do you need vacations? To make a film for me is the actual process of production is vacation to me, and I enjoy the process very much.
So that's why the shooting lasts so long.
Yes, sometimes it's because you just fall in love with the films. You don't want to let go.
We're all different human beings, and therefore I react to things in different ways. So there's no generic learning process. The one learning process is to get a camera and go do it. There's no excuse right now where you don't need to. You can organize 3 buddies this weekend, go off and make a goddamn movie. The first requirement of anybody to do this job is inordinate stamina. If you ain't got stamina, don't do it. You got to drive the bus. You have to lead the way. That's the term direction. That's what it's about. If you're nervous and neat, don't do it. If you can't thrive on stress, don't do it. Okay? Because you got to embrace stress. Stress for me is being inactive. I get very stressed if I'm not working. If I'm working and it's coming every direction, I'm completely relaxed. I think also authority is terribly important. So even if you're pretending that you know what you're doing at the beginning, try to pretend properly.
여러분 안녕하세요. 젊은 달입니다. 오늘은 사뭇 다른 느낌의 콘텐츠였는데요. 기존에 준비하던 콘텐츠가 제가 현재 할애할 수 없는 양의 집중력을 필요로 했기에 보다 덜 머리를 써도 되는 콘텐츠로 이렇게 찾아뵙게 됐습니다. 아쉽게도 앞으로도 업로드에는 시간이 계속해서 걸리게 될 것 같은데요. 그래도 속도는 느리지만 꾸준히 올라온다는 거, 알림 설정을 해놓으시면 놓치시지 않는다는 거, 앞으로도 영화 힐링 채널 젊은 달 많은 관심과 사랑 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.